A good Thursday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast on 13 WMAZ Plus. First things first, let's talk about some of the numbers that we did hit yesterday. And yesterday actually ended that streak of 3 days in a row where we have been above average for our high temperatures. Some cloud cover in the morning hours did linger a little bit into the afternoon hours. So we didn't see those temperatures warm up quite as much as they could have in some select few areas. Of course, some areas didn't have that luxury. The cloud cover broke apart a little bit earlier and they saw temperatures somewhere in the mid 90s. But up here in Macon, we hit a high of 92 degrees, so that falls 2 degrees shy of our average high of 94. And our morning low yesterday, 73 degrees, right there around average, like we typically see each and every morning. In terms of the records, we fell about 10 degrees short of that record high yesterday, set back in 1995, and 56 for a morning low temperature was the record back in 1967. And we always talk about these morning low records. Boy, would we love to have some of those temperatures in the forecast with the heat spell that we have been under. No rain recorded at Middle Georgia Regional Airport yesterday, so we continue to watch this year departure of rain number drop down. We're pretty close to about 2.5 inches above where we should be at this time of year, but we will continue to see that number decrease very steadily unless we actually get some rain in the forecast. But it does look like some of the rain chances are improving as we head into your weekend and the end of the work week. So a few scattered rain chances, and once again, the scattered rain chances will come in the form of showers and maybe a couple of isolated storms in nature. Even hotter this weekend. Yes, it's already pretty blistering hot, but we are going to turn up the heat once again. We'll talk about what some of those heat indices are forecasted for your Saturday and Sunday. But we do see an uptick in the rain chances next week. A bit of a stormy setup could be settling in, which wouldn't be a bad thing. It would actually keep our temperatures at bay, maybe not put us in heat advisory criteria, but it does look like towards the end of the weekend into the beginning of next week, heat advisories are looking pretty likely here in Central Georgia. So let's take a walk around the quad. All 4 of our sky cams right now are just looking magnificent. Plenty of blue sky. A few clouds are popping up into the picture, but that's what we normally see at this time of the day. You start to get a little bit of convection. Some of that moisture starts to rise up higher into the atmosphere. So some scattered cloud cover across Warner Robins here in the bottom right, Georgia National Fairgrounds in the bottom left, up here in downtown Macon, and then the direction that we're pointing in downtown Dublin doesn't pick up on much cloud cover, but if I were to flip that camera around, I'm sure we could get a glimpse of the same image that you see on the other 3 sky cams across our area this morning. Here's a look at the temperatures. Low to mid 80s right now, maybe a little bit warmer than what we were dealing with this time yesterday. I think 86 is the warmest temperature I spot down in Wilcox County and Rochelle. A couple other areas are not too far off that number, 85 degrees in Gordon. And what we know about Gordon is, yes, their humidity levels definitely run ahead of the rest of the pack. But current temperature wise, how do we compare to our neighbors? Over to the west, a little bit cooler in Alabama at 81 in Montgomery, 81 down in Panama City, 88 it looks like it's taking the cake for the warmest temperature here at this hour, 88 in Jacksonville, and just to our northeast up in Charleston on the South Carolina coast. But it does look like much of the southeast is hovering somewhere in the 80s already at this hour, and including those 2 southerly locations in the state of Texas, 80 in Laredo and 83 over in the Houston area. So now let's go to your dew point temperatures. The dark green colors, once again, most present the farther east and northeast that you travel, so kind of along the Oconee River, getting up into Lake Sinclair, Lake Oconee, in areas like Putnam and Baldwin counties. And then down here to the south and southwest, that I-75 South corridor, specifically Unadilla and Cordele, are seeing some dew point temperatures creep into the upper 70s this morning. But overall, everyone is remaining pretty swampy as we approach the 11 a.m. hour, and it's resulting in feels-like numbers that are a couple degrees above what their actual temperatures do read. At the warmest, we see a 97 in Gordon and a 97 in Sandersville over in Washington County. It's a good mix of 80s and 90s here at this hour. A couple of lower 90s in our southernmost counties. Feels like 85 in Eastman, so Eastman once again just has slightly less humidity in the forecast and some slightly cooler temperatures, so they're feeling a little bit more pleasant than the rest of our area. But Thomaston does join them at 85 degrees, and then still, as you go farther to the north, just a mix of those 80s and 90s, virtually feeling the same everywhere. But we've seen our fair share of areas over the last couple of weeks that have been popping up triple digits already at this time. Very thankfully, we're not dealing with that as of right now. Here's a look at your winds and your wind gusts. We're starting to see some shades of that blue filter in, especially farther down to the south. So once again, just like we were talking about yesterday, the farther south and southwest that you live or you travel in central Georgia today, that's where your gustier winds are going to be present. And actually, that's where some afternoon rain chances will be more present because it's going to be closer to that center of circulation, courtesy of that Gulf low that is just off the coast of Louisiana and Mississippi. And we do have some more updates with that tropical system or area of potential tropical development, not looking as organized anymore as it once was about 2 days ago. So your forecast for your Thursday, just toasty again, hot and humid. You know the drill this time of year, right smack dab in the middle of the month of July. Your shower and storm chances are looking a lot better for the evening and night time frame as opposed to the afternoon time frame. I did mention that a couple areas could see some rain in the afternoon, and that would be very beneficial. Hopefully cool those temperatures down just a touch, but a high temperature of 95 if you do not catch anything in the way of rain. So 95, when you pair it up with the humidity, of course it is going to feel a lot warmer because this number right now on the today graphic doesn't look too bad on paper itself. But when you have to factor in that humidity here in central Georgia in the summertime, of course the heat index is going to crawl a couple degrees above that threshold. Right now up here in the Macon area, it does look like we'll just flirt with that 100-degree mark, maybe a degree or two above it. At 101 is the highest temperature that our graphic right here, our meteogram, is topping out at 4 and 5 p.m. But some isolated areas are going to have a little bit more moisture, maybe some slightly warmer temperatures. So of course they're going to have the potential for some heat indices that climb a little bit higher. So we don't have a heat advisory once again here in central Georgia. Our neighbors over to the west and the northwest don't quite have that luxury today, but we still have the potential for some areas to have isolated feels like numbers up to 105 throughout today. And I wouldn't doubt that we see some areas like Gordon or maybe down in Cordele and Unadilla, those areas that have a lot of moisture present. They could climb above that threshold, hopefully not too far, but still not expecting widespread heat indices of 105 plus. So it hasn't warranted a heat advisory just yet. We'll go into more of that criteria as we look into the future because we have a couple of even hotter days as we head into the weekend and talk about what is going to warrant a heat advisory as opposed to what wouldn't. But first things first, it still will be hot no matter what. So I'm going to be talking about heat advisory possibly, feels like numbers triple digits plus. What you need to know is it's going to be hot all week long. So remember to take care of yourself and take care of your furry friends. When temperatures in the air, those actual temperatures, hover around 95, which is my forecasted high for today, concrete and asphalt temperatures are going to be a great deal warmer, somewhere around 45 degrees warmer than the actual temperature for concrete and getting up to about 60 degrees warmer than that actual temperature. 140 and 155 degrees on those hard surfaces. If you're taking your pet on a walk, try to walk them in grassy areas, something that's not going to be as hot as concrete and asphalt. But if you are taking your pet on a walk on those hard surfaces, make sure you get them a pair of shoes, something to insulate their paws because that is not going to feel good on it. You wouldn't want to walk around barefoot on those surfaces, so don't let your furry friends walk around on those surfaces either. And just like I always tell you, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Make sure your pets are hydrating as well. Bring that little portable bowl and a bottle of water for them on an afternoon walk. And something else we have to look out for in this dangerous heat, those signs of heat illness. So, of course, we're going to focus on the left side of your screen, those heat exhaustion symptoms, because if you combat the symptoms over here on the left, hopefully you're not going to be dealing with any of the symptoms on the right, which are going to be your heat stroke, which is a more severe heat-related illness. So being faint or dizzy, excessive sweating, cool, pale, and clammy skin, rapid, weak pulse, muscle cramps, and of course, nausea and vomiting for both. If you start to feel any of those symptoms when you're spending a long amount of time outside, then make sure you're going inside, trying to take a break somewhere where it's cooler, whether that's the shade, whether that's the air conditioning, and continue to hydrate very, very frequently, whether that's a bottle of water, whether that's Gatorade or a Powerade, getting your electrolytes, making sure that you stay hydrated because this heat can make it very easy to get dehydrated. The main symptoms of heat exhaustion are probably going to go hand in hand with heat stroke, but the one big difference that you know that you're jumping straight into a heat stroke as opposed to your general heat exhaustion will be no sweating if you are experiencing a heat stroke as opposed to the excessive sweating that is associated with heat exhaustion. So let's go to your satellite and radar picture. We have a couple things to talk about, at least surface feature wise, about how it's going to impact our weather, or maybe not so much impact our weather. Here's a look at the cloud cover right now, where more of it is present farther to the west and the southwest. Seeing a couple of showers over here across the Alabama state line, maybe around the Auburn area, the Opelika area, just to the west of Columbus and LaGrange. No rain to be found in central Georgia. No surprise there, the mornings have been an absolute treat the last couple of days. And going into your satellite and radar now, we take a view of the northern Gulf, where it is still a very messy picture. Plenty of scattered showers over here just to the south of the Florida Panhandle. But that center of low pressure has moved farther over to the west. Our fair share of widespread showers and storms around kind of the bottom of the boot of Louisiana right here, just to the southwest of New Orleans. Could be making its way up into the Baton Rouge area. But the center of circulation is all going around what you see in the way of precipitation here on your satellite and radar. So let's take a look at it on the surface map. Right now, that low pressure is centered just to the east of Louisiana, right along the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So those portions of the northern Gulf Coast are going to experience their fair share of rain, regardless of whatever organizes or what doesn't organize associated with this potential tropical disturbance. We do have a front up to the north and the northwest. This may start to creep over towards the east a little bit as we go into the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week, and it could have some impacts for our forecast. But also, if this is to kick into gear and sag a little bit farther to the south and the southeast, this low pressure center, as it moves on shore, it's going to run into that frontal boundary, and the forcing could cause it to make a bit of a U-turn back over here into the eastern United States and take away any of this high pressure that is currently situated to our north and our northwest, which is trying to dry out that atmosphere. Keep forgetting to update the time frame for the 8 a.m. update. I promise this is as of the 8 a.m. update. But we have seen one small change with your potential area of tropical disturbance we've been keeping a very close eye on. Number one, it has continued that westerly path that we were talking about it's going to take, and it's going to continue to move farther over to the west. So that's a very good thing. What you need to know is it's moving farther away from our neck of the woods. So it's going to have less and less impacts to our forecast. But the chances of development are actually down a touch from what we've seen the last 2 days. Now down to 30% chance of developing into a named storm over the next 48 hours. And a 30% chance of developing past that 48-hour window. It looks less and less likely that this is going to claim the fourth named storm of the 2025 hurricane season, which would be Dexter. However, this moisture is going to sit in the south and the southeast portion of the United States for quite some time, and it could maybe possibly circle back around. So we'll talk about that, what we see on the long-range models over the extended forecast. But overall, it is looking less and less likely that this will get an actual named storm. It will really get its act together because a lot of that center of circulation is really just kind of rode along the northern Gulf Coast. So the more land that these tropical systems move over, the more it disorganizes. But if it is to move over this warm Gulf water that we have in the northern Gulf, then of course that's the prime ingredient that what a potential tropical system does need in order to form. And there's also not a lot of wind shear present in the Gulf as it currently stands. So if it were to sag a little bit farther to the south, of course it would get its act together a little bit more. But since it's forecasted to really move on shore over the next day or two, it doesn't look like it's going to have ample time to interact with those warm sea surface temperatures down to the south. So let's talk about our forecast. Let's go to future view, go back to our point of view, and see if we have much in the way of rain. And there is some pretty good news when it does come to your rain chances. Number one, if you live farther to the west and southwest, like I was saying earlier, you are going to have a better chance of a scattered shower, maybe even a storm during the afternoon hours. Consider yourself very lucky if you do catch some rain at this time frame, because that's when the rest of our feels-like temperatures are going to be reaching their peak for the afternoon. But there is plenty of scattered rain over into Alabama, southeast Alabama, getting into the Florida Panhandle. But those areas are going to be just a little bit closer to that low pressure center. That's why the rain chances are looking a little more impressive than us. We're just kind of on that outer edge of where those outer bands of rain are going to travel. But we still are probably not going to be left out entirely. Some select locations are going to possibly see a scattered shower or even a storm or two as we head into the nighttime hours. This run of future view is not looking as impressive as it did this morning. It looks like the rain chances are trending a little bit later, just past sunset. And of course, once we get to sunset and those hours past sunset, we start to get darker, our temperatures cool down, and more intense weather in the form of heavy showers and some storms don't have a lot to work with. They have a lot more to work with during that peak heating window around 3, 4, and 5 o'clock each afternoon. Warm temperatures result in that rising motion. We have plenty of surface moisture, so it's going to continue to lift all of that moisture at the surface, condense eventually, form clouds, and the more moisture that you have available, it's going to contribute to higher cloud tops, and that's where we start to see some of your stronger weather in the form of storms, whether that's a strong storm or whether that's a severe storm. Not too confident on seeing the possibility of a severe thunderstorm warning today, but of course it's something you can never throw out of the cards this time of year when you're hot and humid. Now let's go into Friday. So once again, the theme with each and every day, we are going to see that lull in activity during the overnight and early morning hours. We'll have some clouds stick around in the forecast, but just about each and every morning, we have not seen much in the way of rain besides a residual sprinkle, if anything. But just past lunchtime each day, those temperatures will warm back up, and that's when we're going to start to see scattered showers pop up, and eventually a couple of storms are going to be possible as we head later into the afternoon, more so into the early evening time frame. This is 6 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, more so the evening, so Friday night plans, you're not going to want to head outside without that umbrella or that rain jacket close by and keeping it on hand for the entire weekend. But the good news is once we go into the evening hours closer to dinner time, temperatures will begin to cool down and we will see a lot of that rain start to fizzle out and really dissipate in nature by the time we hopefully go into a clear Friday night. Right there at 10 p.m. it did look pretty clear from rain here in our neck of the woods. Now let's go into Saturday afternoon. Once again, kind of a rinse and repeat, copy and paste forecast. Just a very typical summertime forecast is what you need to know. It's going to be hot, going to be humid, but that second half of each day, scattered showers and a couple of storms are going to be possible. And Saturday is actually looking a lot like Friday did yesterday when we were showing you future view. So it's still a couple days out. We're going to see some fluctuations with this, but it does look like the best chance at receiving some rain, even a couple of storms. And those heavy rainfall rates associated with some storms are really going to limit how much your temperatures warm up, how much your feels like temperatures warm up. Some of that rain-cooled air could keep you feeling a little bit more pleasant, somewhere in the 80s, maybe even into the upper 70s if you get that rain to last a pretty long time. But as we go into Saturday night, activity fizzles out, and once again, we go overnight into a clear start to your Sunday morning before more rain chances are more than likely going to pop up on Sunday afternoon. So for the next 3 days, we have seen a slight uptick in the rain chances. It does look a little bit more probable that you could catch a stray shower or a stray storm, but what you want to focus on is going to be your high temperatures mainly. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday all going to have 30% chances of a shower or a storm. Now Saturday probably looked more like a 40% day, but of course we see a lot of fluctuation this time of year with that graph model specifically. So we kind of like to go with a little bit of an in-between number to cover the bases, because the next model run is probably going to drastically disagree if we bank on the coverage that one model run does say. So 95 for a high on Thursday, 96 on Friday and Saturday. It's only a steady uptick, and those temperatures basically feel the same, but each degree of increase that you see on the actual temperatures is going to result in probably about a 3-degree increase maybe on those feels like temperatures, and we're already pretty warm. We have the potential for feels like numbers that are 10 degrees above your forecasted high for Thursday. So if we are to continue to see that increase into the beginning of your weekend, then of course the heat indices are going to increase as well. Mainly because we are not going to see a change in this muggy meter whatsoever. We continue to see some of these values try to hover a little bit lower in this light green shaded area. That would be dew point temperatures in the 60s. It's still humid, but it feels a little bit more comfortable than the extra swampy air with dew point temperatures in the 70s. But each time we get to the actual day of, we see a little bit of a bump up into this lower half of the dark green box, and really this point should probably be more so in the middle to upper range of this, because most of our dew point temperatures are in the mid to upper 70s right now. And then as we go farther out in the future, it is a little bit more uncertain. We see a lot of fluctuation with this. But unless we were seeing a really substantial downtick, maybe down into the more comfortable range, dew point temperatures in the 50s, I wouldn't really be buying anything in the way of some slightly drier air getting ushered into our forecast. So you can expect the humidity to really hover in this dark green shade for the foreseeable future as we go all the way into next week, because we are not going to see any big scale weather systems usher in that slightly drier air, which could make all the difference with our forecast this time of year. But just referencing back to the 4th of July weekend, we actually did see that downtick with some slightly drier air in the forecast, and it really limited our rain chances. But it's been a while since we saw that, just showing you how frequently that we are just going to remain hot and muggy in our forecast. So if we are to get some slightly drier air, we will not take it for granted. We will enjoy it to the best of our ability. And it was very fortunate that we got that slightly drier air during the 4th of July holiday for some outdoor celebrations. All right. You've probably been looking at this graphic and like, Alex, I think you probably need to talk about this. I don't want to really talk about it, but yes, the heat is only going to get worse as we go into the weekend ahead. Feels like temperatures up to 105 to wrap up the work week today and tomorrow. How about 107 on Saturday, and then 109 for Sunday and Monday. Once you start to get into the 110s for what the feels like temperatures are, that's where you start to go above and beyond possible heat advisories. But it does look like a heat advisory is going to be pretty likely, at least starting on Saturday, and it may probably continue into Sunday and Monday if we are to see good model agreement and have good agreement that the moisture levels will remain the same and the afternoon high temperatures will tick up. We're actually looking at highs around 97 for Sunday and Monday. Some models even calling for 100 by the time we get to Monday, but of course they were calling for that last week. We didn't see any numbers that really got too close to that. But if we are to see a trend with a couple of models get on board, then we'll start talking about maybe that first day that we hit the triple-digit mark for a high temperature in the year of 2025. So I was mentioning that I think heat advisories are going to be pretty likely starting on Saturday, and that's the guidance of the National Weather Service. They're remaining pretty confident in that idea too. So you can see that these are all according to certainty percentage. Number one, it's looking likely, but once you get to 80%, that's where you have a very high confidence in those potential air temperatures or feels like temperatures. Two different things can warrant these different types of heat alerts here in central Georgia. Note this at the bottom. So if you are not in the FFC or the Peachtree City forecast area and you are by chance watching, each different forecast office has different criteria for select areas because, of course, it's kind of relative to the heat that you are feeling. Areas farther up to the north, if they were having temperatures like we have right now, they would be an excessive heat warning by all means, because yes, they don't typically see temperatures to that threshold or feels like temperatures to that threshold. But feels like numbers around the triple digits or slightly above the triple digits are fairly common here down in the deep south. So if we have an actual air temperature of 103, which we have not come close to so far, our highest temperature we've recorded in the year of 2025 came at the end of June and it was 98 degrees, or a feels like temperature of 105. Well, of course, we have that criteria today. We have that criteria tomorrow. Why are we not in a heat advisory? That's not going to be very widespread. That's really the upper end of the range, and that's going to be a select few areas. But if you are to start to see more widespread feels like numbers of 105 at the very least, then of course some of those counties will be included in a heat advisory. But overall, these heat alerts, excessive heat warning, excessive heat watch, they don't really mean too much different. It doesn't change your forecast. You still know it is going to be quite unbearable outside. This is just kind of giving you an idea or giving you an actual alert to make you pay more attention to what's going on outside and be more cognizant of the heat when spending a lot of time outside. So excessive heat warning, that's definitely going to be the worst of the bunch. We get these excessive heat watches a little bit ahead of time for an excessive heat warning, but those thresholds, actual air temperatures of 105 degrees, still not in the neighborhood of those, but we could get very close to those feels like numbers of 110. So hopefully we don't see those numbers towards Sunday and Monday climb up a little bit higher, but they will be at least widespread of 105. That's why I'm confident in a heat advisory for at least Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday. We may even see one as soon as Friday afternoon, depending on how widespread those feels like numbers are going to be. So once again, we'll show you the feels like graphic here on Future View. Just pay attention to the pink shades. Obviously, the actual values are probably going to hover a little bit below what the max heat indices are going to be. It's going to be your very isolated and localized areas that try to see some of those pink shades that are going to have numbers that are above what we see here in Macon and over in Dublin. These are only 2 points in central Georgia. So if we were to zoom in on this and kind of pick apart certain areas, one town in each county, then of course we could get a better idea. And I definitely do imagine areas to the east, just north of Dublin, are probably going to have those upper end of the range, feels like temperatures. But all you need to know is the potential for hovering right there around the triple-digit mark. And as we go into Saturday, we actually finally see some widespread pink. I actually saw a flash of 103s and 104s. So know that these values that you see in Macon and Dublin are probably going to be a little bit below what the actual feels like temperatures are. But if at their lowest, they're popping up a 103 or a 104, you know our fair share of areas are going to be even above that threshold. So let's go into the long-range models. Do we have any changes on the horizon? Can we get this super muggy air mass out of here and maybe some of the warmer temperatures? Well, what I'm seeing right now is our front to the north and the northwest of us, and it could be clashing with some of the moisture that's going to be associated with this Gulf low right now. Like I said, it's probably going to move onshore in the Gulf Coast areas of Mississippi and Louisiana, and it's going to continue to move farther onshore, going to interact with that frontal boundary. And it does look like we kind of get a wraparound sense. As that front does sag farther over to the east, it could be acting as an axis of lift associated with all that tropical moisture. So it looks like a pretty active picture and a pretty stormy picture for the southeast as we go into Monday afternoon and evening. And that pattern continues as we go into Tuesday. Plenty of widespread rain chances, really right smack dab in the middle of it is the state of Georgia. Now, of course, you see some blue shades, you see some green shades. Models not in total agreement just yet. The GFS in green and the European model in blue have to come into good agreement before we really see an uptick in those rain chances. But we continue this pattern, it looks like all the way into Wednesday evening, and then that moisture maybe tries to move off in the northern Gulf, where it could try to organize into something potentially tropical. Well, that remains to be seen. This is still pretty far out into the midweek next week. What I want you to plan on is probably a stormier forecast starting on Monday and continuing into the midweek next week. That's why you are seeing a downtick in those high temperatures. So hopefully Sunday and Monday are going to be the peaks of the heat. Hopefully we don't see too many values above the 110 threshold, but I do believe you should look out for a heat advisory Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Sunday has the lesser rain chance right now. We'll get a better idea when we see it on Future View, the short range, the high resolution models this time tomorrow, and we can plan out your whole weekend ahead. But overall, you should just keep the umbrella handy, keep the rain jacket handy, because of course Mother Nature has a funny way of popping up a shower or a storm directly over you when you are unprepared. So it's kind of just karma or maybe irony, don't know what it is, but at the same time you want to prepare for the worst and hopefully expect the best. Temperatures aren't going to waver much. We're going to see a steady uptick all the way to Monday, then a slight downtick, hopefully back somewhere in the mid to low 90s by the time we wrap up the work week next week. The muggy air isn't going anywhere, as I mentioned, so that's why you'll continue to see scattered showers and maybe a storm or two present each afternoon. And you can't rule out a strong or a severe thunderstorm warning in some isolated areas this time of year in light of the hot and the muggy air. But that's where your 7-day forecast stands, and the main thing that I want you to take home away from this, it's going to be hot no matter where you live, no matter what day it is. It's just a matter of how hot in some areas. But make sure that you're taking care of yourself, keeping your body cool, taking care of your furry friends, and of course, making sure that you apply and reapply that sunscreen. So thanks for tuning in for a look at your extended forecast. We'll have a weekend preview for you tomorrow at 10:30 here on 13 WMAZ+. So we'll see you back there at 10:30 sharp tomorrow.